Hey everybody, it's time for fall cooking on Texas 2.5, and today we're going to be doing some home cured and home smoked bacon. Check it out. We're doing bacon today on the Lone Star Grill. I've got a new place that I've set up the Lone Star Grill down here in visitor parking. If you watched my recent video about how to nearly ruin your Lone Star Grill in less than 3 seconds, you'll know why. I have moved further away from my house and am now down here on a nice flat spot of asphalt rather than my old digs up here in the yard, which were uneven ground and this time of year very soft ground. So we got a new home for the Lone Star. Don't know if it's going to work for winter or not, but we'll see. Anyhow, check out what we're about to do with this bacon. Today's bacon cook is going to be a little bit of an experiment, not only because I've never done homemade bacon before, but also because the fall weather here means cooler temps. I think we are in the maybe high 40s to low 50s today. And I'm starting, as I normally do, I always start my Lone Star hot and fast anyways. So what I'm using today is one full Weber chimney of Royal Oak red bag. It is ridge charcoal. They do claim that the red bag starts faster, burns hotter, so I'm not too worried about it. We'll do a full chimney of that, and then I'm going to do a couple of oak splits to get started. Both of them are about, I don't know, 12 to 14 inches long. Not huge splits. You can estimate that size yourself there. But starting with a couple of those as well as a full chimney. Once I get a nice bed of coals down and it's time to put the meat on, I'll start rolling with cherry for the rest of the cook. Alright, I have had some folks ask me to show again how I get my fire started, so I'll do that quick. This is there's a full chimney again of Royal Oak red bag, well lit, that I dumped in there. I took one oak log and I ran it down the side. It's not on top of any charcoal. I used it to push all that nice lit charcoal over to the right a little bit. And this log here, it might be on top of a couple of briquettes, but it's mostly just laying on the grate itself with hot charcoal packed up next to it. The other log, I rested on top of all that, and even though it's hard to tell, it's really not touching the hottest part of the charcoal. It's really, you know, even if it's only 1/4 of an inch, there is some airspace there. And that's important because if you want to start hot and fast and most efficiently, you don't want to lay your log right on top of your coals because it will smother them. You might think, oh, hot coals, they'll take over quickly. It doesn't matter. I can throw a flat log on top of all that mess. Well, if you do that, it actually does slow down your starting because it cuts down on the airflow. And it takes a while for those hot coals to overcome that log sitting right on top of them. But if you'll figure out a way to get yourself some air gaps between that log and the charcoal underneath it, you'll get flames immediately like I'm getting, and everything will start much faster. Now from here on out, I usually only add one split at a time, but I always start with 2 to get myself a nice hot big coal bed that will be easy to maintain for the rest of the cook. At this point, I do not shut the door all the way. I leave it good and cracked. That's at least an inch, inch and a half for lots of airflow. And I have my chimney wide open as well. And my damper wide open as well. Once those logs are pretty well engulfed in flame here in 5 or 10 minutes, I'll shut the door and adjust my damper from there as needed. But for now, let's go inside and get those pork bellies, bring them out here. Alright, our pork bellies are out here and ready to be probed and thrown on the smoker. One thing to note, I'm sure you're wondering, what recipe did you use to cure the bacon? I'll get to that in a second, but first let me point out, this was one 9-pound pork belly from Costco. It was skinless, has a nice fat cap on it. And the recipe that I used was the recipe that Jabin Postal did on Adrenaline Barbecue. He did a real quick 5-6 minute bacon video on the Weber kettle using the slow and sear. I watched that. I used his recipe, and I'm just trying to replicate it on the Lone Star Grill. I will put the link to his recipe down below. I did stick very strictly to the amounts that he gave in his recipe for the pink curing salt, which is very important. However, I did cut back on the regular salt and the pepper because I don't really love peppery bacon. I like either bacon that has a distinct sweet profile or a distinct smoky profile, savory, but I'm not big on peppery bacon for whatever reason. So I diverged a little bit I cut back on the salt and pepper in his recipe, probably by about a third. But everything else, the purified water, whatever, bottled water, the sugar, the maple syrup, and definitely the pink curing salt, I stuck with his amounts. Now, I did eyeball these. I did not weigh them. I just eyeballed cutting this 9-pound pork belly into thirds. This one is a little bit bigger than these two. This one's probably 3.5 pounds, and these guys are each probably closer to 2 3/4 pounds. Nonetheless, I used Jabin Postal's recipe is for a 3-pound pork belly, and I used it exactly for each of these, even though they're just slightly off in size. So that's how I chose to handle it. Maybe in the future I might try a different recipe or get a little more strict in weighing the pork belly and weighing the pink curing salt like some guys do. But for my first cook, I wanted to keep it simple, and I trust Adrenaline Barbecue Company not to be giving us recipes that are going to poison us. So I was very comfortable just going with that recipe for my first experimental cook. Got my brand new Maverick XR50 all hooked up and ready for action. It's not on yet, but as soon as I pull these pork bellies out, I'm going to probe each one, place them on the grill, and I have placed my pit temp probe dead center back bottom shelf because I'm going to be putting these pork butts on the bottom in the cooler zone of this Lone Star, and I'm going to try and be careful with them since it's my first attempt. I do not want to go hot and fast on the pork bellies. We're going to go low and slow on those and bring them up to 150, which is what Jabin Postal does, I think. I'll go back and rewatch that video here while these are cooking, but I think he brings his up to 150, pulls them, cools them for several hours in the fridge, and then slices and fries as per usual with bacon. I've had this door open for a whole bunch of time between videos, so we would be above 200 easily by now if I had not done that. But we're at about 15 to 20 minutes in, and we have a really nice coal bed. Because it's a colder day, I might end up throwing a third stick in there sooner rather than later. But I want our bottom shelf to be at about 225 to 250 max for this cook. So that's what I'm shooting for. Let's get to it. All right, we are all probed up and ready to go here. The pro of this Maverick XR50, one of the mini pros, is that it has 4 probes and a 500-foot range, and it's under $100. As far as I know, that's the only product on the market that can say that. Again, one of the cons that is really annoying me, I was lightly critical of this in my XR50 review, but as I use this more, I'm a little more heavily critical of this. This is actually a super annoying thing about the XR50 is that the little clips that they give you to put your pit temp probe through do not hold the temp probe very well at all unless they're at absolutely the perfect width of being pinched, and they're designed for Weber grill grates, not for expanded metal. So if you put them in an environment they weren't designed specifically for, this is my conjecture, they just don't do very well. That the clip is very loose, and that probe slides in and out really easily, which when you're fumbling with meat and cords, and all those cords are all intertwined and connected, um, going into your pit. So every time you pull one, you pull all four of them. It's super annoying that that temp probe falls out of that clip so easily, and then you have one more job to do when you're done probing all the meat, and that's go back and fix your pit temp probe. So that is pretty annoying. I wish they would make that a little more user friendly, but it's a small to medium complaint. You'll notice that our pit is at 161 on the bottom grate, and the meat is all in the 45-degree range. One thing I ought to say, if you watched the Adrenaline Barbecue recipe video with Jabin Postal, he does rinse off his pork bellies before he puts them on the pit. I forgot to do that, but I'm not very worried about it. He does it in case there's any salt deposits, that sat on the meat on one spot or whatever. I'm not too worried about it because, again, I used less salt anyways than is normally in the recipe. And once I had these unwrapped and on the grill, I wasn't going to go throw them back on or throw them back in the kitchen and rinse them down. So the other thing you might be wondering is how long did you cure for? Jabin, I believe, recommended 3 to 5 days. I did about 4.5, nearly 5 days. That's how long I did it for. We'll see how it goes. One bit of sad news from the Hamilton barbecue world here at Texas 2.5 is I'm going to have to put down my old buddy of 7.5 years. The bowl and the lid are fine on Weber's. They last forever, but the problem is everything outside the bowl and lid is pretty rickety. So actually the legs are holding up fine. This thing has always been kept in the garage. But what's not holding up is the tabs that hold up the ash catcher after years and years of use. This thing is starting to fall down on me with regularity every time I use it. So I have it rigged back up for today, but I went ahead and shopped on Facebook and got a great deal on one of these Weber Performers with the folding side table, which fits perfectly in my old Weber spot right here. It won't take up extra room in the garage. So this is a nice little setup. Got this for $90. A little bit newer Weber with the built-in thermometer. I had to add mine. And it also has the lid catch, which I love. So we'll be excited to use that. The guy threw in some charcoal, a charcoal tub, a charcoal scoop, as well as a Weber chimney. And this is in pretty good shape. There's a tiny bit of rust up here, but he even gave me a cover for it, which I'll never need because I keep it in the garage. But all that for $90. So pretty excited to add this guy to the family and actually have a table finally with my Weber. That'll be nice. All right, y'all. It took a little longer for me than it did for ABC Barbecue on their video. Their cook was about 2 hours, they said, and this one took me about 3 hours. Not sure quite why that is because my temps were even higher than theirs. They were holding 225, and I probably averaged about 240 for most of this cook. But nonetheless, right about 3 hours to get the pork butt or the pork belly or bacon to 150 internal. These three cooked remarkably close together. I was monitoring the pit temp the whole time, and actually, amazingly, there's supposed to be about a 50-degree difference from top to bottom on the LSG. And the LSG's stock thermometer is about halfway in between the top and the bottom rack, which means there should be about 25 degrees difference between the thermometer and the top rack, and about another 25 degrees difference between the thermometer and the bottom rack. But it was only about 10 degrees difference, it looks like right now. And my side-to-side temps are obviously very stable in the LSG as well. Those only run about 5 degrees difference. And so these pork bellies, all three of them stayed within about 7 degrees of each other the entire cook. As a matter of fact, we're at 151.5 on the hottest one right now, and we're at 144 on the coolest one. And so they've stayed pretty close together. I'm going to go ahead and pull the two that are the most done. That 144 one I might let go a couple more minutes. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull these. I'm going to let them rest for about an hour just tinted in foil out in the cold garage where it's only about 45 degrees. Then I'm going to wrap them a little tighter and put them in the fridge for about 3 hours. And I'm hoping yet tonight, once those have cooled and firmed up for slicing, I'm hoping yet tonight to have a little pre-bedtime snack and slice some of this up and fry it. And I'll bring you back for that. Check it out. Wait a second, you're saying. Don't bring us back for that. You got to show us the done pork bellies. I'm sorry, I forgot. Let's show you some video here of these pork bellies coming off the LSG. All right, this is my first peek at them with you guys. They are looking golden brown and beautiful. Wow, those things look delicious. I cannot wait to slice into those bad boys in a few hours once they've cooled off. That is a beautiful picture right there. What a scene. All right, we're frying up the first batch. These are hand sliced, so they're a lot thicker than store bacon, which means you gotta cook them for a lot longer if you want to get them crispy for your Smashburger. But the first little pieces are just starting to come off. They look delicious. Let's taste one. All right, here we go. Still pretty hot, but it looks good. That's about the thinnest piece I had in that whole batch because, man, it's hard to slice that thin by hand. But hey, I like thick bacon. Let's give it a shot. That is delicious. Crunchy all the way around the edges and chewy in the middle. Best of both worlds. I definitely pick up the sweetness of that recipe, but it's not overbearing. It's not like you actually dipped this in maple syrup. It's just a very light hint of sweetness at the back end. I'm glad I cut the pepper. This is perfect. This is going to go great on Smashburgers, which I'll show you in just a second, and on something else that I have a surprise for you a little bit later. All right, here we go. We got our Western burger with some John Henry's Texas pecan drizzled over the top. Double smash burger, sweet pickles, nice thick layer of our homemade bacon, some more barbecue sauce on the bun, and yellow mustard down underneath there. So let's give it a bite. All right. Looking good. That is worth it. It's not life-changing. I don't want to exaggerate it. It's not like pig candy, but it is good quality bacon. It's definitely better than store bacon. And we'll be doing this again. This is really good, y'all. If you've never tried doing your own bacon at home, it's actually pretty simple. And it's worth it. Give it a whirl. All right, everybody, we're back for one final sampling of bacon. And here's what we're going to do. I happen to have a favorite ice cream place locally that makes amazing creamery homemade ice cream. And every fall they come out with some really awesome flavors. My second favorite is called apple cider. And what I'm doing is getting a bite of apple cider real homemade ice cream ready with some nice crispy and crunchy and chewy bacon bits. And we're going ice cream and bacon. So let's check this out and see how it is. This is a tablespoon, not a teaspoon. Let's take a sample. That is good. Tastes like an apple dumpling with bacon and vanilla ice cream all together. That's an amazing little treat. I could do a whole bowl full of that. You could take 6 crispy strips of bacon, put them across the top of a bowl of ice cream, pretend it's creme brulee, and punch through all that with your spoon. That'd be something. Now, my all-time favorite flavor from them, and I think the best ice cream I've ever had. They make a flavor every fall called cinnamon sugar pecan. And yes, I said pecan, because I don't compromise. Some people today have compromised the proper pronunciation of the word. Not this guy. Anyhow, cinnamon sugar pecan is literally the best ice cream I've ever had, and I'm not even a big cinnamon guy. I don't love cinnamon. But this ice cream, it's like the ice cream form of a cinnamon roll. It is amazing. So let's put our bacon bits on there. Here we go. I can just smell it already. I can tell you this is going to be awesome. That's delicious. Just like everybody else, I love bacon on cheeseburgers, on pizza, on all the savory dishes, but bacon is also an amazing dessert accompaniment. And that homemade bacon, thick, super thick sliced. That's the thickest sliced bacon I've ever had, because I don't have a slicer, so I'm just slicing by hand with a knife, and it's impossible to get them thin. But I'm fine with that, because I like the thick slices. It's almost as thick as a slice of ham. It takes longer to fry in the frying pan. You have to be patient. You have to do it on medium-low heat instead of medium or medium-high if you want to get your bacon crispy around the edges, like I do. If you like your whole bacon soft and chewy, then you don't need to do that. But if you want some crisp to your bacon, you'll want to go a little lower and slower in the frying pan so you don't burn it by the time it gets crispy when it's this thick. And that's what we did, and it turned out great. Perfect combination of crunchy around the edges and chewy in the middle. It was delicious. Before we wrap up, one thing we would do differently next time, after my wife and I had a lot of that bacon at lunch on our burgers and by itself, we both agreed that next time I'll use the full salt amount. I was trying to go low sodium because there's so much salt in the barbecue rubs and the barbecue sauces and the cheese and all the other things that I like to put on my burgers and on my pizzas. And I just figured I don't want the bacon to be super salty. I don't like bacon to taste like salt pork. I wanted it to be low sodium, so that's why I did that. I cut back on the salt. But next time we'll do the full salt complement, because when you eat it by itself, it's not very salty. I think what we'll do in the future with this batch is maybe just salt it lightly in the pan while it's frying. But I assumed that the ABC recipe that I used was a typical salty bacon recipe, but I think actually it would have been the perfect moderate salt recipe. And so I'll use the normal salt amount in the future on that. So that's one adjustment I recommend. Just start with their recipe, try it, and adjust from there. But I will still cut back on the pepper, because the pepper amount on here was perfect for us. We don't like it super peppery. So I will cut back on the pepper in the future, just like I did on this cook. But that's the only thing in that recipe that I'll alter. It is very, very good bacon. It's the best bacon I've ever put in my mouth. And we'll definitely be doing that again in the future. I'm sure we'll still buy bacon at the store most of the time. But I'll do a few batches of belly each year, and we'll definitely eat it up because it was delicious. So hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Texas 2.5. If you're wondering where the grilled tri-tip videos came from, I showed some pictures of that with our Vermont white cheddar mashed potatoes and kale with vinegar sauce and bacon grease on the plate there. That's what that was. I figured since I showed you my new Weber grill setup during the middle of this video, that I'd show you my first cook on it. I didn't film the first cook because honestly, I had just done all the pork belly and pork belly video and I was tired of filming. But I took a few pics and thought I'd show you the first results with the tri-tip on the new Weber Performer. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. We'll see you next time at Texas 2.5.